thank you for all the work you do in promoting economic freedom, and I want you to maybe shed some light on this issue of minimum wage, because a lot of people are in favor of it, and doesn't seem like a good idea to me to raise the minimum wage based on any number of reasons, but I'd like to get your take. Should we raise the minimum wage to $10 an hour?
No, we shouldn't have a minimum wage in this country. The government should never, ever, ever be in the business of setting wages and prices. We should have learned that lesson 50 years ago. The market should set the price. And if you want to hire me for $7 an hour and I want to work for you for $7 an hour, why should the government say that that's a contract that can't be, freely engaged in? The evidence shows very clearly, almost irrefutably, that when you raise the minimum wage, you put teenagers out of work, you put the least skilled out of work, and you put minorities out of work. So isn't that interesting? The people who the left says they're trying to help tend to be the victims of the minimum wage. And the worst thing you can do if you want people to have economic success, which we do. We want everybody to have an opportunity in this country. We're conservatives. We believe in creating an opportunity society for everyone. That's what America's about. When you raise the minimum wage, you saw off the lowest rungs of the economic ladder so people can't climb.
So it penalizes the least productive members of society, which is really heartless, right? Isn't it heartless?
I would say that, I wouldn't say least productive, because people can become least skilled.
Well,
but you learn, you learn your skills on the job, and that's why I always say, like, the first job I ever had was a minimum wage job. I'm going to show my age here, $2.15 an hour, working at a warehouse. But you learn so much on that first job. You learn how to show up and how to be a good worker and how to be productive and how to run a cash register, how to run machinery. That pays off dividends hugely, and people who start working at a younger age, they tend to have higher wages and salaries at a later age. Now, if we were to raise the minimum wage, and I'm against it, but if we do, then at least we should have a teenage minimum wage of $5 or $6 an hour, so that young people can find a job after school or to make some extra money and learn vital work skills.
Unskilled people is the problem. I mean, they can't produce value added to the service that is $10 an hour. They're not going to get the job, or if they have a job, they're going to get fired.
Yeah, because nobody's ever going to pay someone if they can't produce as much as their wage requires them to be paid.
Right.
But for most people, look, half of the people who earn the minimum wage are under the age of 22, and about another half of the people who earn the minimum wage only earn the minimum wage for about 6 months. So it's really kind of a training starter wage, but then people get either they get fired or they get a pay raise, and so it's a temporary situation for the employer to find out whether this person will work or not.
So this is just one more example of the law of supply and demand.
Yeah, I'd say
if you raise the price of something, you have less demand.
Yeah. I think there's no question about that. And I always think about those first jobs that I had that paid the minimum wage, and they were really valuable to me. I feel like I should go back to those employers and pay them money for giving me the skills that allows, just like everyone, an ability to advance and learn the kind of vital work skills that you need to be a success in life. And this idea that people shouldn't work at a young age, this is a very subversive idea. I mean, we need to get young people working, and I always think people who grow up on a farm who work from the time they're 10 years old, they have the kind of work skills and the attitude, and a lot of it is just an attitude of willingness to work, and that's missing in a lot of workers in America. So don't raise the minimum wage. One other point: the problem in America today is not the minimum wage, it's the median wage. The middle income wage has not grown for 10 years. In the last few years of the Bush administration, the first 6 years under Obama, there's been no wage increase. That's the problem. And you're not going to help middle class workers by raising the minimum wage. The minimum wage is $8 an hour. The average wage in America is $24 an hour.
So there's a lot of hypocrisy regarding this law of the minimum wage. I remember when I interviewed Nancy Pelosi, and it turns out that she wants everybody, and she wanted to raise the minimum wage, but turns out that she didn't pay her interns the minimum wage. So it's okay for her to hire people and to have them work for her, without paying the minimum wage. But other people out in the private sector, oh no, that'll be horrible.
Are you accusing liberals of being hypocrites? That would never happen. But yeah, it's like when all these liberals who say they favor higher taxes, and then they move to the places that have the lowest taxes, and that happens all the time. But I think this is a really dumb policy. In the Reagan years, we never raised the minimum wage, but the wage rate in America rose because we created jobs, and as you got more demand for workers, their wages rose, and that's the way to raise the minimum wage, is do it through the market forces by creating a healthy economy that everyone's got a shot.
One last important point that I want to cover is when you don't respect the judgment of adults regarding the kind of labor contract they want, the employee and the employer, isn't that like immoral and tyrannical, where you're telling somebody, listen, I don't care what your judgment is, I don't care if you think this is good for you to work at $7 an hour, I'm telling you that if you cannot work for 10, you're worthless. And it's just such a abuse and immoral use of state power to tell people, I'm not going to respect your judgment.
Yeah.
Freedom is about respecting our judgment, right?
I agree with that, and excuse me, I would make the point that we should have a training wage in this country. So for the first 6 months or a year, you could pay somebody $6 or $7 or $8 an hour, and then when they learn the job, in most cases they're going to get a pay increase anyway. I strongly believe if we could get the pro-growth policies in place that we want, tax reform, Social Security reform, regulatory relief, sound money system, all of these things, drilling policies that develop our energy policy, we wouldn't need to worry about the minimum wage because workers would make way more than the minimum wage. The problem is this president, like when he vetoes things like the Keystone Pipeline, he destroys jobs that Americans could have, and not minimum wage jobs. The average person working on the Keystone Pipeline makes $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
I just sneezed.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.